Hello, everybody. I'm super excited. Today, Carolyn Cassin is on. She's with Michigan Women Forward and BELLE Impact Fund, right? That's how the BELLE Impact Fund.
Yeah.
And BELLE Michigan Impact Fund. Yeah. And so, and you have like a amazing long career of like greatness. And so I have like so many millions of questions for you. But just to get started, so you're the founder of the BELLE Michigan Impact Fund and the president and CEO of Michigan Women Forward, among many other notable roles. So what are the challenges? This is a women-focused question. What are the challenges you feel women entrepreneurs face on a daily basis, and how have you kind of navigated that? Because I feel like you've held like many leadership roles in a lot of different organizations.
Wow. Well, that's like could take us the rest of the half hour. So
I know, yeah,
perfect. I think this pandemic has been particularly hard on women, to be honest with you. I think that we got thrown into a lot of things that I don't think we were very well prepared for, like being school teachers and caregivers and managing kind of a process that we really had nothing to do with. And so it's been pretty difficult. We had out of all the companies I invest as a profession, I invest in women-owned businesses, and so it's very exciting. And I've been doing that now for the last 10 years. After my company that I started went public in 2005. And so that was an exciting run, an exciting thing to do. But this is a lot more fun. It is a much, much better way to spend my day, believe me. I love operating things, but I think that finding great women to invest in is the best way that anybody can spend their time.
Yeah. And you started a Michigan hospice.
Yeah. I was in the healthcare business. I was in the hospice business. I started out in the nonprofit sector back about 30 years ago and cut my teeth and learned a lot here in Detroit. You can see Detroit in the background there, about taking care of dying patients in an urban setting, which gave me a great leg up when we went to expand. And then a group of venture capitalists came to me and said, can you do what you've done in Michigan throughout the United States? And can we create a company? And so I said yes. And it really was fascinating to start a company from scratch and to figure out kind of how you do good work in every single community in the United States and make sure that it's done well and done right. So I loved it. The company went public in 2005 and sold in 2008. And so, it was a great run.
And then you were rich. That's I was like, I love a story like that. I always love like when I'm doing a lot of like the research and like you see like companies, I'm like, man, that person must have made so much money at that.
Well, here's the thing: if you divide it up by the number of hours that I worked, I made like 9 cents an hour.
Yeah, the amount of stress it takes a year to end of your life. You're just like, oh well, we just won't think about it.
Yeah, I don't remember sleeping for about 10 years.
But having a boat probably offsets a lot of that, though. Like if you've got like a boat or something like that, that's like my rich person dream. I'm like, oh yeah, then I'm gonna buy a pontoon boat or something. But probably,
yeah. So I don't even remember what you asked me. What was the first question? So what worries me? Everything worries me. From top to bottom, I am an entrepreneur. I want to create things. I want to solve problems. So everything worries me. And what really worries me, I think, is that everyone in America was just not prepared for this. And I find that as an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared for everything.
Yeah.
And the hundreds of businesses that I've invested in, they weren't ready, and I didn't get them ready. And of course, it's my fault. I mean, the pandemic isn't my fault, but the
but it is, and you just admitted it. Everyone is so mad.
No. That I had nothing to do with the pandemic. No. But I actually, I feel like it is really our responsibility to better prepare people. That there will be many more crises to come. I promise you with this. And this has sort of recentered me around the fact that we really have to work hard to get to be smarter and to be, this is a whole new world we're entering into. And we have to, we have to prepare for it. And I'm more into my queen than I have ever been before, because a lot of our businesses did not have enough cash. Cash is queen, instead of cash is king, cash isn't king, cash is queen. It's really the thing that has allowed some of our businesses to survive. And those that weren't prepared, we have to help.
Yeah.
So that's what I worry about. How are we going to prepare for the next 30 years? And the next, I don't know that there'll be another pandemic, but there's going to be something. It's going to be something else.
God, I hope there's not another pandemic. That I feel like I've had my fill of pandemic at this point. So I guess like maybe my question is like more global of like, what challenges do you think are like sort of unique to women that are starting businesses, maybe building their careers, that like you've obviously been able to face those challenges and kind of successfully navigate your way? Is there like,
well, the system wasn't the system of investing and the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem was really not set up by women. It wasn't set up by us or for us. And so it's often, I think, a little strange to us. I think you would agree. You've worked in this system. It isn't intuitive to us. And so the thing that I really like to spend time doing is helping people understand it's like a new language. If you haven't read another language, you really don't know what those words mean on it. And that's what this is. You just have to really dig in and understand it. I like translating that. I feel like I'm a translator sometime. I think that there's sort of two parallel tracks going on in the investment world today. And that is, one of them is helping people who have been outside the system get in it, helping women and minorities who have been clearly outside this circle and haven't been invited in very often. So that I spend a lot of time trying to do that. But the other side of it is being disruptive myself. I still think of myself as a disruptive innovator, and trying to learn lessons from investing. I only invest in women-owned, women-led companies. And so trying to make those companies so successful and trying to improve the data, which already proves that women do a better job. All women-led companies do a better job on average than all men in the management team. And so there's a lot of just great disruptive things that I've got to finish doing in the next 30 years of my life. So I was just last night, there's this group in Ann Arbor called Shine and Rise that Allison Todak and a few others started. And like, it's basically like women in tech get together. They invite me, even though I don't run a tech company. It's like a secret because I do the research on the tech things. So then I get invited to the tech things. Good.
Haha. But it's like really cool group because they get together and like all sort of kick around ideas and like things that they've experienced and like hearing other people's perspectives. But we did touch on last night just how many women in the tech community have had these like huge, like record-breaking type of successes, or like unprecedented successes. Unprecedented is the word of 2020. I would never want to hear it again. But like have had these sort of like, great fundraises between like Mina and Julia Owens and like all these others that are like having all these like big success that I almost feel like then is like, I don't know, like it's not get brought out in as much prominence, I think, as some of the other successes that the tech community has seen. So it was just kind of interesting.
It's true. It's true. But, prominence is overrated. I think the best thing to do is just, is to prove the hypothesis that women in charge would do a better job. So, which is my hypothesis, that, when women get an opportunity to lead, whether it's within a company or whether it's the easiest place to lead, of course, is your own company, that we just have to do a better job. And we do. Fortunately, we're right. The hypothesis does prove out to be true. And so I don't know. I think many of us don't really care so much about, being on the cover of a magazine like Forbes or something. I mean, I don't think that's.
I'd take it.
Would you? Okay. I don't really care.
You want to be on the cover of Forbes? I'm like, hell yeah.
Okay, you can have the cover of Forbes, or you can have some boats and a whole boatload of money.
I know, actually, yeah, maybe.
What do you pick? I don't pick Forbes. I think there's this kind of quiet revolution going on. Things are changing. Things are we're making a difference. Yeah. We're proving all of the naysayers wrong. And, somebody will turn around someday and go, oh my gosh, look. And that's why I like you, Emily, is because you actually research things. And you can tell the story through data, which I think we always ought to rely on, at least to some extent. And so
I wish people
you're gonna tell this story, and when you're my age, you'll tell this story. So that you saw it first.
Yeah, and then hopefully some big VC firm will come in and be like, "Can you start an entry point in every state?" And I'd be like,
"Yes," and you'll say yes,
and then boats.
Yeah. You'll say yes. I mean, the answer is always yes. I can do that. That's what I learned. Even if you don't have any idea, like I had no idea. Can you run a national company? Of course I can.
Yeah, that is true. And I think it is funny because that was another thing that we kind of touched on in the meeting yesterday, of just that, like, a lot of times women will be like, "Oh, well, I don't think I'm quite
right, not ready, not prepared,
do that perfectly or whatever." Right. And then I think that guys that do tend to just be like, yeah, sure,
close enough. Yeah, and that's actually, I think that what I've seen is that is one of the barriers for women, is that we want to be totally ready for a job before we take it. We want to be sure we have enough experience and we have capability to do the job, and that keeps us out of taking risks and doing things as often. But the truth of the matter is that's a good thing, because women don't take stupid risks often. What I see is women take calculated risks. They take thoughtful risks because they aren't the first to jump in. They didn't just invest in something this morning because they talked to somebody at a bar last night. This sounds like a good idea. Yeah. They thought it through. They went back. They checked that person out. They did the due diligence that you need to do to make a really smart decision. It's still a risk. It's always a risk. Investing is just betting on your ability to pick the people who really are going to make a difference and who can win. Yeah. So it's gambling. It's sort of high stakes gambling.
Yeah, it's true. Explain like Michigan Women's Forward a little bit.
Sure. So this is my heart. I love. This is the track where I do the work around trying to leave the world a little bit better place, and that is making a more inclusive economy. If you put the economy on a graph, women and minorities don't do very well. They don't show up much on the graph, right? Or on the chart. So the Michigan Women Forward is an organization that seeks out and finds women and women of color who have been unable to get a loan, unable to get any support or help with their business, and finds them and tries to create this inclusive economy in a very small way. It's very different from, it's actually the other end of the spectrum of venture capital. Venture capital is looking for big wins, right? And big game-changing ideas and disruptive innovations, whereas the Michigan Women Forward is really just looking for ways to give people a chance on anything. I want to start a beauty salon. I want to, take my mother's recipe and turn it into a small business. Those kind of things are powerful. They change people's lives. And
I think that is really critical in building wealth within different communities.
Absolutely.
And in Detroit, just like having that, like, even, medium successes where some people have like a little bit of money and a little bit of operating experience really helps like even their friends and family who are then looking to kind of follow that same path. And like, I think that's what we see a lot just with access to capital for small businesses, not necessarily tech businesses, but like small businesses, a lot of times like friends and family and like acquaintance kind of money is where they get the first money. And if you
they get that from Michigan Women Forward. They don't really, I didn't grow up in a family that had money to invest in me or anyone else. And so, I understand that how difficult it is. And that's part of the reasons why the statistics are what they are, is because it's not easy to start a business when you have no money. So you can't even pilot it. You can't test it. You can make it for your friends and families, that fabulous jam, but you can't market it or sell it. You can't scale the business. You have to have money. And so, they come to Michigan Women Forward if they're a small startup business, and we are the first investors in them. And it's incredibly exciting. Yeah, we usually do it through microlending. We do it through, microlending has proven to be a huge leg up for women all around the world. And it's late. It came late to the United States, but I'm a big champion of investing through microlending as a first step to being able to make your dream come true.
Yeah, that is really cool. I like that. I think it's like you guys do. So you guys do like the investment portion, and then you also run like classes and programs and
stuff. Money is just, as anybody who's in business knows, money is just one piece of it. You have to surround people with help and support. And we try to do that frankly, with BELLE and with at Michigan Women Forward. There's just a lot of, I call it a roller coaster ride. When you start a business, you're on this never-ending roller coaster ride where you throw up at least once a day. And so you have to have somebody to help you figure out and get the skill set you need, get the resources you need. The other thing that happens for people who have been outside the system is they don't have a database of women and of men that they know and that they can go to and get help and get a cheaper, raw materials and things like that. Once you develop we used to call it a Rolodex, now it's called a database. But once you develop contacts with everybody, you start to, and that's what we try to do. We try to put at everyone's disposal this incredible group of women who have, who either support Michigan Women's Forward or who have been successful. BELLE has 67 of those women who are investors in the BELLE Fund. So that's pretty, we invest our own money. We don't invest somebody else's money. This is not some big venture capital firm. This is all of us taking our money and reinvesting it in other women. So it's just so much fun, so much better than working for a living. Really, it's wonderful. It's really wonderful.
We're working all the time, though.
Yeah, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, I still work a lot, but it's fun. It's really, really, really fun.
And it's cool because I think like since you have kind of like both roles of like venture capital investor and like Michigan Women's Forward, who's like your
Yeah.
boats, high tide rises all boats, kind of attacking from both angles.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Is
It's,
there
it,
any organizations that you've worked with like across the country or elsewhere in the Midwest or in Michigan that you feel like are really doing like a really great job as well, that you're kind of like, yeah, like Michigan Women's Forward is providing this piece and they're like awesome at providing this other piece, or that they're like,
oh, there are so many good organizations around. You know, the problem is that women tend not to scale very well. So, you know, I can talk to you about how rich small r, you know, and the Detroit entrepreneurial ecosystem is, or the Michigan entrepreneurial ecosystem is, but there's a whole nother one in Chicago, and there's a whole nother one in Indiana and everywhere else. Each of them have been, you know, we're sort of little islands. And the idea is to kind of connect us and get us together. So, you know, there are other organizations like Michigan Women Forward, like Action, which is a national company. There are some, the Green Bank. You know, those are companies that I modeled my work at Michigan Women Forward around. I just, you know, I'm a steal shamelessly kind of person. Somebody else has thought of something that I can adapt, and that's so. You know, I'd encourage anybody who wants to get into business, look around for a while and look for organizations and call us. You know, right? I mean, you know where everyone is, and you know all kinds of good organizations. So do I. There's so many I like working with, but not enough of us are region-wide or statewide and national companies. We gotta do better, caring about more than just our own backyard. You know, we've got to do more to create these organizations that are recognizable to everybody.
Yeah, I so agree. Question number 2.
Oh, yeah.
According to our research, only 10% of venture-backed startups are led by a female CEO in Michigan. What can investors proactively do to make the entrepreneurial ecosystem more inclusive of women?
Yeah, well, I say, you know, it's pretty easy, actually. You just have to demand it. You know, it's like the old adage of, you know, I'm not on a stage or in a meeting where there's no women. I'm the only woman. You know, why? We're 51% of the population, you know. So you just have to say, you have to stand up and say, who's not at the table here? And so if you're involved in a fund and you never get women, call me. I'll send you 5 women who can pitch to your fund tomorrow, and 5 companies. So just demand that you personally are going to do your part to create a more inclusive opportunity for people. If there's a seat at the table, you're at it, pull up another chair for someone else and bring somebody else to the table. And tell the real story about women-owned, minority-owned businesses. They do very well. And this Forbes did this is data from Forbes, that they get a 35% higher return. Companies that are run by a diverse team with women and minorities in that team get better returns. That your return on investment is just greater. Now, you know, who is against that? And it's just, that's not a political statement. That's not a, you know, it's just look at the data. They do better. The bottom line performance in someone's portfolio, you know, we talk a lot about our portfolios being diverse, right? Yeah. Everybody knows that, right? You don't want to have all your money in stocks. You don't want to have all your money in bonds, right?
Yeah.
You miss too much. Oh my goodness. It's true everywhere. You You want to have, and if you want to consider women and minorities an alternative investment for the first few years till you start to believe the data, then do that. Only invest 5% of your money in us. That's great.
Yeah.
But make sure that you're investing in more than just traditional things. Ask who you're investing in.
Yeah, I do find like it's interesting that like, I mean, even when we were putting together our board, and it's like the things that you think of when you're kind of like, okay, well, we're trying to do like these 5 things, like all of them are not the same type of person. And you just kind of naturally would just have like a diverse board because you want to like, I might want to go to like Ted Serbinsky about a mobility thing, but I might want to go to like Monica Wheat about like,
Right.
Like a operator thing or an accelerator or something like that. Or I might want to go to somebody else about, like, and so like, I feel like you kind of do just even need all of those different opinions. And so it has been like kind of weird that people are just like, we should have diverse boards. I'm like, don't you already try to do that to some extent? Because you need those opinions, different things. So it's like, so weird.
No, there's a striking number of Fortune 500 boards that don't. I believe the number is now 30. If I might be off by one or two. I think there are 35 of the Fortune 500 companies that are run by a woman.
Yeah.
And there are, I believe, only 2 run by an African-American woman.
Yeah, I think.
How about that? You don't think there's a problem? There's not a reason to kind of work together and solve this in our lifetime. I don't know. I mean, today is an auspicious day to be talking because we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. I when people ask me to talk about it, I say I'm not celebrating this. We should be much farther along. I mean, let's solve this. Let's figure out how we can each make a difference and get this done in my lifetime. So I don't leave this to your generation to solve. It's ridiculous. Let's get gender and racial equity let's cross this, off our list. Let's each do our part to make a difference.
The pat on the back for these like things that sometimes I'm like, why are you care? Like you want a pat on the back because you added like one female word.
Yeah, the data suggests 3. You really need 30% or more of your board has to be. And in other countries, there are actual mandates that a minimum of 30% of your board has to be women. They figured it out. This isn't, again, steal shamelessly, America. Let's just do this.
Like Michigan could mandate, like if we have to have this as a requirement, that why don't they just do that then?
Well,
why don't they just do that?
We have a woman governor who is very willing to listen. That's one of the great things about her. She's willing to listen. And so I think we'll see some changes. She's only, a year and a half into her job. So yeah, let's go. Let's do it. I'm in, Emily. I'll go with you.
Yeah, me too. Gretchen, we want that.
Yeah. This is all we want from you, Gretchen. So
yeah.
Right.
Well,
gender equality.
Yeah, if you could just.
Right.
Okay, so question number 3. Michigan Women Forward works with small businesses, and I think I already asked you this, but we'll just see. Works with small businesses and startups across a broad range of sectors. How is your team currently supporting these businesses? Well, this will be a good thing to touch on because then you can touch on this. And then how do you anticipate your support will kind of evolve over the next 12 to 18 months? This is such a self-serving question of mine. I know nobody knows what we're talking about, but I'm like, yes. And then, so what are you doing? And then how do you anticipate that will evolve over like the next year?
Well, I think everything's going to change in the next 18 months. I think we're going to look back and go, oh, the good old days in 2019 when we could all get together. 1,000 of us could get together and do something, remember when we used to go to football games, things like that. I think it's just going to be different. Not bad, not worse. It's just not maybe better, maybe not. But so we've really focused on the things people need to know to be prepared for the next pandemic. What are sort of the fundamental things? The first is, to me, is always about cash. You know, you have to know where your money's coming from, and you have to prepare for it, that spigot being turned off overnight, like it was. I had not really thought about that, because very few times in my life has something been turned off overnight.
Yeah.
And so that was a new problem to solve for us. And so what do you need to do? You know, I've always been a daily cash flow kind of girl. I've always wanted to know what my revenue and expenses were every single day, which is why I like data, because you've got to have good systems in place to figure it out. But long before we had systems in place, you can still count it by hand if you need to. So those are the kind of we're just trying to prepare people, get people to really think about their business, think about kind of transforming themselves into kind of what is going to be needed. There are many businesses that are thriving during this pandemic because they pivoted, because they did something a little different than they had been. There are many businesses staying alive because they pivoted. And so we want them to kind of take that, learn from it, and create scenarios. You know, the most fun thing to do is to sit around and think, okay, you know, what are the top 5 disasters that could possibly happen? And then think through, think through what would we do?
Yeah.
Having come out of healthcare was a good background, because healthcare is, always had to be, have always been essential services and on the front lines. And, the part of the reason that they've figured, they've been able to respond is because they do a lot of scenario planning.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of things that we're trying to do with companies. And we'll continue to do, and we'll continue to evolve. Both of these organizations that I work with are gonna change. And a year from now, I don't know what we'll be into, but it'll be something that hopefully is helpful.
And I think just like having a good sense of things, and I feel like the self-serving part was just like you and I, how we've talked about, like looking at the data and really going back and analyzing on a regular basis. How it's affecting businesses, what new support has been put in place, what the regulations.
What's actually helpful, right?
Yeah.
I think we don't always know what help is really. I know if you're an entrepreneur out there, you really are. You're never sure. Who there's plenty of people you can go to and talk to, but who would really be the best one for you? And those are the kind of questions we've got to help sort out and make it a lot easier for entrepreneurs to find the right. It's like surgery. You gotta, it's got to be something very precise, so that you're not just going to webinars that are broad and interesting, but don't really give you the 2 or 3 kernels of information that you really need to be effective and to survive this.
Yeah. Like digital marketing. I'm like, oh Lord, all of that stuff is so complicated. Cool. I don't want to hold you too long, so I'll just make sure there's no I guess, are there any trends in Michigan that you feel like are really concerning to you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I get up every morning worried about the businesses that, the data that I've looked at says that it's possible that 50% of the businesses that were shuttered won't come back.
Yeah.
I think that's a stunning statistic. And it's, it's not that in some ways those businesses can't arise again in another form.
Yeah.
But it's really horrifying to start something that you love, that you've poured your heart and soul into, and have it be shuttered and not come back. So I worry about that. I worry about how we're going to emerge from this, and what we can all do to help, so that and I think keep alive those businesses, those small businesses. The most vulnerable businesses are the first to go. And often those are women and minority owned businesses. So, you know, go out today and find a place to eat, find a place to get your hair done, find a place to shop that is owned by one of those people, because they're the most vulnerable businesses. And you can say, oh, well, you know, they'll rise again as something else. But the fact is that if you have one failure, sometimes you can get back together, but it also can be so devastating that it takes a very, very long time. And so that's what I worry about. Don't end with gloom and doom.
I know the next one is a happy one, and then we can then I won't hold you hostage for 100 years here. But how are you spending your free time during the pandemic? Anything fun you're doing?
Yeah, of course. You can't do hard work unless you have a lot of fun on the other side. So, the most interesting thing about this has been that I didn't leave Michigan for 6 months. And I'm sort of rediscovering my state. I was like the last person to run around to places in Michigan because I felt like I'd been there. I've lived here for the last 30 years. I feel like I've been there, done that, took my kids to all that stuff. I didn't really want to go back. And, but I have gone back, and it's really been exciting and fun. And there's great things close to home. I spent a lot of time outside because supposedly those vectors can't stay in the air as long and carry the coronavirus, supposedly.
Yeah.
Although today I heard that it might not be true. But whatever. It's been great to be outside, and it's I'm not looking forward to winter, but it's been different. I've spent more time in my kitchen than I have in the last 20 years, in the last 6 months. But other than that, I guess it's been great.
Yeah, that is. I try to stay out of the kitchen for sure.
Yeah, my office is in my kitchen, which is why I said that. I just plopped down in my kitchen on March 23rd and never got up. So
I have a healthy chip addiction now. I've been eating so many chips. So
I know.
I don't even like chips, and then I'm just it's 10 p.m. at night, and I'm like, it's really good.
Yeah, my desk was 5 steps away from that's why I'm in my office, because my desk was 5 steps away from the refrigerator. It was disastrous. So I had to leave and come back downtown. So
yay. Okay, cool. Well, I won't let you about your day, but thank you so much for joining us all. And I'm super excited to see your face, and it's always a delight. And I love hearing all of your stories. So I will hopefully talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.